What's that sound? It's for amusement only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Tonight I have a special guest, Jeff Rivera from the Pinball Podcast. He's the other part of the duo that records about bi-weekly. And I am excited to present our interview, which follows now.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm great. How you been?
Can't complain.
I have plenty to complain about, but I won't. I'll save it for my show.
That's right. The Pinball Complainers Podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Jeff, I wanted to talk with you a bit this evening and see what your thoughts were on EMs in general and bingos in particular.
Oh, in particular.
Yes. So,
okay.
Where would you like to start?
Wherever you want to. You drive this. I've been one of those guys who's recently, over say the last couple of years, awakened to how great the EMs are. So I was never like one of those guys that found them boring, but now I just find them a lot more interesting than I used to.
So any particular era or manufacturer?
No, not really. I guess probably since I'm still on the tail end of that honeymoon phase, I'm happy to try anything.
It's always a good attitude, because you never know. So do you have you played many metal rails or wood rails?
Not a ton. I mean, basically, the EM community here in the Salt Lake City area is pretty weak. I know there's a few pretty good experts, but there's not a lot. I think kind of where I'm at, everything migrated away from the middle of the country to the coasts, and but when I see them at shows, I'm all over them, just because that's my opportunity. So not a ton, but yeah, enough to know that I like them.
Very good. And were you also at the Rocky Mountain Pinball Showdown?
Yes, I was. That was a good time.
So what were some of your favorites there, EM-wise?
Wow. This year was a little bit different than in past years. A lot of the EMs that are generally there were missing. I guess the show was pushed back partially for weather reasons. I mean, it's normally you get snow at that show and it kind of hurts things. So they pushed it back a little bit, and I guess it kind of coincided with some of the big EM and classics collectors, and so some of them couldn't make the show. They had other things going on. But let me think about that. I mean, there's quite a few, and that were there that were in really nice condition. I can tell you one of the ones I missed most, and that is the one that's always there, and it wasn't this year, and it's called Cherry Bell. Have you ever played that one? It's a Spanish one.
Is that a Sonic?
It is Sonic.
Yep. Haven't played it.
Okay. It's just a beautiful game. So I really missed that one, but I guess I don't want to like highlight what I missed over what I enjoyed. But let me think about it. You caught me off guard on that because it's been a couple of weeks. Let me go back. I made a list because I took notes this year. I normally don't, but let me go back on that. This year was a little bit interesting too because Don and I were doing our show, and then I got into the tournament a little bit, and got a little bit more into the social side than I have been. But some of the ones I really liked. Let's see, pulling up my list right now. Okay, so obviously the one that we gush about all the time is the old Chicago. That's just one of my favorite games, any era. Really nice one that was at the show. I played that one a lot. There was also an EM version of Matahari, also one of my favorites. Really good one there. Jumping Jack, that was one I enjoyed. Oh yeah, the Aztec. That was a cool one. I think that was it for all I wrote down. I know I played a bunch more, but there's normally at the show a full EM room, and that was unfortunately not there with everyone saying, "Oh, 300, duh." I put a lot of time in on the 300. I like that game quite a bit. That's one of those ones that it comes up for sale once in a while around me, but it's always so blown out that I just can't bite on it. Though that probably wouldn't be too hard of one to restore, so maybe I ought to grab one of those blown out ones and bring them back. But I really liked the 300 that was there quite a bit.
Was it the one with the auto launcher, or did it have the plunger?
I do not remember now. I think it had the plunger, to be honest. Yeah, pretty sure.
Those auto launch ones are pretty interesting. They have one up at an arcade in Pennsylvania that's on the way to the York show, and it's interesting. Changes it.
I imagine they're far less common.
I think so. I don't know if it was an experiment with just 300 or something in those few years that they tried, or if it was just particular municipalities that they were modified for.
Interesting. Do you know if they on that have the same? Do they mix them in the same production run, or do they keep those separate?
I have no idea. No idea. The Internet Pinball Serial Number Database might know, and same with the IPDB, but I certainly don't off the top of my head.
So for the second part of your question, my answer, there were no bingos at the show. So can you believe that?
I can. It's quite a task to move one, and you've got a limited number of people who are willing to do it.
Yeah.
And,
while you're looking at that, I'll tell you they had some really cool pin games, flipperless pin games, and they had one. I can't remember the name of it, but it was really, really cool. It had what looked like a jigsaw puzzle on the lower half of the playfield area, and as you would shoot the little BBs, they'd go around, and depending on how much you scored, it would, when you started the game, the jigsaw puzzle pieces flipped up, so the puzzle kind of undid, and the puzzle pieces would turn back flat, so you would try and be basically putting the puzzle together, and that was really cool. I'm trying to remember the name of that.
That's a Rockola jigsaw.
Jigsaw, that's it. That was, I played that a lot. That's on my notes. It was from 1934 Jigsaw. That was so cool. Really think they should have. That's some kind of mechanic that you think they still could do in modern pinball through with kind of a window or something.
Oh, absolutely.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. A lot of Rockola's ideas were pretty far ahead of their time, I think. But they were primarily a jukebox manufacturer, and
right.
Yeah, they got out of pin games pretty quick. But.
Yeah, that was cool. They did have a baffle ball, which you obviously couldn't play. That was kind of a look, don't touch thing. But so that's there every year. That's kind of cool to just see. They had one other older one like that that you could play that was a baseball themed one. Trying to see if I wrote the name.
34 World Series.
It was. That was also pretty fun.
That's another very desirable Rockola game.
Yeah.
With a rotating turntable.
Yep, and it was cool because they had both of them for play, and where they had them in the tournament room, kind of in the back of that. So it was interesting because it was a room where you didn't get a lot of just normal foot traffic, which was probably by design. They probably don't want to blow those games out there. But I noticed as people caught on to them being there, you'd see someone sit there for a good 20, 30 minutes just hammering away at those because they're fun. And you'd have a group of people standing there, and if someone got a big line of the puzzle pieces of Jigsaw, they'd start freaking out. It was cool. I totally would pick up either one of those.
Mm-hmm. They're beautiful games too.
Mm-hmm. Not cheap, I'm sure.
No, not those two particular ones. You've got expensive taste, Jeff.
I know. Spoiled.
So, yeah, but I'm trying to convince a guy who lives in Colorado to bring one next year, a bingo. So, have you ever played a bingo before?
I have. When I I made a deal a few years ago for 3 pinball machines in one, and the guy had a bingo as well, and he was just like, hey man, you can have it. But I couldn't move it. I didn't have a vehicle to move it in. In fact, it took me getting a friend over to help with the other 2 machines. I could only move 1 pinball machine, and just barely at that time. So I couldn't do anything with the bingo, and I was like, I'll destroy this thing trying to get it home. I don't want to do that. So I told him, hey, if I can find a way to get this home, I'll be happy to come back and get it. I'll, since you're holding on to it, I'll give you another $50, $100, whatever. And but I said, but don't wait. If someone wants it, let them take it. And I found a friend that had a truck that would have worked, and called him back. He's like, oh yeah, just let it go. But yeah, I played it for a while. It was a lot of fun. I don't remember what it was at all. And then at a couple, I have seen them at shows before, and had a chance to shoot on them, but not many times.
And,
they're cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think you like them quite a bit.
So the ones that you did shoot some balls on, I mean, were you aware of what you were doing and what your goals were and so forth, or was it more of a push the button and then shoot some balls?
It was definitely more push the button and shoot some balls, and I didn't quite understand the logic of how I was lighting what I was lighting, but he did, that one that he was showing me, he did try and show me a few things and kind of explain a little bit of it, but it was just so brief of an explanation that I didn't quite catch on, but I did understand, hey, there's more to it than just launch and let it go, and that's it. So
that's good. That's always the first lesson. And that one's always free, by the way. So is it something where you think you might ever pick up a bingo in the future?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I almost took that one the guy had. For me, it's more of a matter of space and opportunity than worrying about what one costs or anything like that. Because I've been trying to clear out areas, and I think you scolded me a little bit for saying it would go in the garage instead of the main game room. But no, I actually am trying to move out a few of my arcade cabinets that are in my basement now, and why not a bingo, right? Especially if I figure out what I'm doing on them.
Yes. And nothing will make you figure it out faster than getting one that doesn't work. But yeah,
I did that with an EM. I brought one back from the dead, and that was a lot of work.
But very satisfying, isn't it?
Yes, it was. And it was I would say it wasn't a beginner's EM. It was an OXO. And
yes.
It was actually a home use only OXO.
Wow.
But it had been stored in a shed where a rat family made a home there. And it was dirty. It cleaned up really, really nice, but pretty much every switch needed to be cleaned and adjusted, and that game has a lot.
Yes.
But the first time that tic-tac-toe board started lighting up correctly, I lost my mind. It was so cool.
Awesome. So OXO is a 4-player Williams?
Yes.
Very, very late. In fact, isn't there a solid-state version as well?
I'm not sure, but that sure would have been easier to deal with. I can't believe how much that game keeps track of, because it keeps track of 4 players' tic-tac-toe progress, all without any electronics. It was really cool.
Yeah, EMs are fascinating. That's kind of what I talk about. So, any other EMs make it into your collection?
None now. There are several that are on the list that I would buy immediately. But no, like I kind of live in an EM desert around here, and the ones that pop up seem to get snatched up pretty quickly. Just the supply and demand's way out of whack here. If someone was able to bring in a big truckload of decent or at least easily revived EMs, I think they would do pretty well moving those around. But yeah, there's a handful that I would jump on for sure if they came up, regardless of condition. And then there's a handful if they were in decent condition, would definitely do it. So,
Well, what are you looking for?
like everybody, I would like an Eldorado. I really like that game. I love drop targets on the EMs.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously Matahari is one, and they're everywhere, but they get so blown out. I also would like Sky Jump. That's one of my favorite EMs. That one's one of those regardless condition ones because I'd be willing to put the love into it to get that going. I would take an Old Chicago. I've got a friend who has one, so I can play his. But if he ever decides to part with it, I'll kill him if he doesn't let me take it from him. Let me think here. I would buy a 300 as well. If I find out who owns that Cherry Bell in Denver, I'm going to hound them until they sell it to me. Like, that's all there is to that. So, but I could tell you what's for sale around here right now, and you could tell me what to grab.
Sure.
So just like a few kind of recently listed things, I've got nearby. There's a. I think I showed it to you. There's a Key West for sale.
Mm-hmm.
Bingo. I don't know how that one ranks in the bingo world.
The hierarchy.
Yeah, they've got it listed for 400 firm, so they're not budging off the 400 on that.
Is it working? Did they say?
It says in all caps that it says that it works good for its age, has been gone true. I think they meant through. So I bet you it would be fine, just need some adjustment. But it does actually look pretty clean, no big massive wear. The pictures are kind of cruddy, but the back glass looks good, so
Okay.
not bad. Okay. There's a 73 Williams Jubilee for sale.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it works, but it needs to be cleaned up. It's a little bit flaky as far as its gameplay is a little unreliable, but it looks good. I remember Jubilee being one that wears thin pretty quickly, based on my experience with it. It's not terrible, but it's not one of my favorite EMs. There was also a Valley Turf King nearby, but the guy thinks he's going to get $1,400 for it.
So. What kind of shape is that one in?
He doesn't take any direct pictures of the playfield, so that makes me kind of wonder. The back glass looks pretty good. It's kind of hard to tell from the picture, but I don't see any missing paint right off the bat. The front of the cabinet's pretty rough, but I assume that's pretty easy to stencil, that machine. There is some complicated artwork, obviously, on the front, but it's pretty scratched up in the front. Looks like things have been leaning against it for quite a while. The sides aren't too bad, so that's one of the ones that even I know about is Turf King. But yeah, 1,400 is kind of maybe a little out of my range.
Have you ever played one of the horse racing games?
I have, just like hay burners.
Okay. Some of the more pinball.
Yeah,
style.
more pinballish.
Or flipper style. So, Key West. I want to say that is it a single card?
Let me take a look. Don't know. How do you tell?
So how many separate sets of numbers are there on the back glass?
Just one.
Okay.
That I see. Says it in his description. I don't know what he means, but he says it has A, B, C, and D screens.
Okay. Here we go. Key West is a Magic Square game. Okay, that's why that wasn't ringing a bell. I thought it might have been an earlier game, but I just had to flip through Jeffrey Lawton's book to find it.
It looks pretty old.
Yes. So it's a Magic Squares game. A, B, C, and D actually rotate sets of 4 numbers in each of the corners. So they rotate in a
I see that. The 1 and the 9 switch, 6 and the 8. That's cool.
Yep, it's really neat to see in action. So that would be a good one. I think.
So he's asking 400 firm, but I think he's been trying for a little while. Maybe that firm starts getting a little shaky.
Maybe so. That 400, if it really is in good condition and has been gone true, then might be good.
It looks like it's been gone true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that might be one that I would jump on.
Okay.
So
I might give that another look. I could send you the link, and
yeah.
You can see the shaky images on it. But it's I don't know. It's kind of cool. Like anytime you see anything where the all wood rail and everything, it's just kind of a nice classic look to them, and those restore so well.
Absolutely. Yep. Oh, okay.
It's not too far. It's about 20 minutes from my house, looks like. So
Let's see.
Art's great on it. The place, yeah. So.
Most of the Bally artwork is pretty darn good at this phase. Once they start getting into the 70s, it gets a little different. It's still great. It's just a little less detailed. Yeah, this looks like it's in pretty darn good shape. So the only thing that gives me pause is there's no pictures of it lighted.
On? Yeah.
Yes. So let's see what he says. It's an old style bump machine. Has no flippers. As long as you text him, I think everything will be okay.
Yeah, he really wants a text, not a call.
But yeah, it looks pretty good while it's off, and I don't see any major parts missing or anything from the photos. So,
sometimes when they light up the back glass, all the cracks show.
Yes, and so that kind of makes me wonder. And just because it's been gone through doesn't necessarily mean that everything's actually working.
Yeah,
but.
It could be a fun project. It'd definitely be easier than the OXO.
Yes. It's different, though. So you have a lot more rotational stuff going on.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you have to take apart the score motor on OXO?
I had to take apart everything.
Every single switch.
Pretty much.
Okay. Well, then, yeah. I mean, this would be no big deal.
The Valley Turf King is lit up in its pictures.
Turf King is a beautiful game, and I'd love to have one of those. Those suckers are heavy, though.
Yeah, just looking at it makes my back hurt a little bit.
Yeah. This Key West is going to be pretty lightweight, actually.
Okay.
The wood rail ones are not, the back destroyers. So yeah, I mean, I would probably follow up on that one.
Nice. Okay, so I thought this was a Central Park, but it was just a Central Park back glass. No.
Not quite as good a deal as you thought.
No. Also a hit the deck back glass.
Well, as long as you need some back glasses and not the actual game, you're in good shape.
I'll pick the game.
Aztec. You said you liked Aztec. That's a 70s Williams as well. What about that one attracts you?
I think on that one, it just felt different in, I don't know if necessarily a great way or good way, but it just I don't know, like there's nothing super weird about it. It's pretty standardish layout, but for some reason it just felt a little bit different. I do like games where you've got the spinners that will go up to the rollovers to the top. It's got that. I thought it was weird because if I remember right, it didn't have any drop targets. So it felt like it was kind of a faster game, probably for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the art, even though it is kind of simplified in its color scheme and stuff. I think they probably could throw in a little more, but I thought it was kind of, I don't know, there's just some kind of a unique flavor to it. I always like the machines that let you shoot back to the shooter lane, so it has that. I don't know, the kind of standard pop bumper placement up in the middle. It just felt kind of like I said, for as standard as it looks, it felt different. It's really hard to put my finger on it. Maybe it's not good, and maybe I just was like just keying in on the fact that it felt. I was playing a lot of modern games, and so I was just like, this is cool. This is a cool change of pace, but I don't know. I just kind of enjoyed my time with it.
I like Aztec. It is. There's only a few, real solid shots on that one. I think the spinner is definitely one.
Yeah, it has a lot of. That's definitely true. It has a lot of. You tend to hit a lot of posts.
Yes. Well, I do anyway.
Yeah, I did.
So I kind of noticed a theme. Most of yours are 3-inch flipper games. Do you prefer those over 2-inch flippers?
Not necessarily. I think it's just probably what I've been exposed to a little bit more. I don't know. That one is kind of where you get a little bit more of a modern feel in it, but I mean, I'll go either way with it. I really like the games with the shorter flippers where you sometimes can't trap or anything, so it's a lot of on-the-fly shooting. I think that's pretty fun too. Those are pretty tense feeling. Just trying to maintain control on those games, so it depends. I like a lot of the ones that don't have any in-lanes as well. But I just, maybe over that weekend I was liking them for some reason or another. The OXO was just opportunity. Like that was like, hey, there's an EM for sale, I'm going to go get it. Luckily, that was a fun game too. So
yeah. OXO, I want to say I think I've only played the solid state version. Let me look that up real quick because I might be confusing that with something else.
It's got the pointy people art on it. Yeah.
OXO. Nope, there's only an EM version. I'm thinking of something completely different.
Is there another pinball machine called OXO though?
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Or maybe it's X's and O's, or...
That's what it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was driving me crazy a little bit. So, as far as older games, like way older games, 40s and 50s, have you played many of the wood rails beyond the rockolas that we mentioned earlier?
Not really. That's where I almost live in a total vacuum as far as experience those go. They're just not around, but they're cool. I've seen them down at the Pinball Hall of Fame and played what I could there, but that's about it.
Okay. Well, that kills a whole line of questioning, Jeff.
Oh, no. That's what I did.
So, El Dorado, of course, Gottlieb remade that game about 4,000 times.
Yeah.
Do you have any opposition to any of the other themes, like Target Alpha, for example, or?
Not really. I would prefer just the classic El Dorado or any, but I'm fine with the way that Pinball kind of recycles their themes and remixes them and changes them up a little bit here and there, even if it's art for the worse. But I just prefer the original.
Gotcha. So OXO, I'm just going to keep going back to this. It's no longer with you?
No, and it broke my heart to sell it. It was kind of one of those deals where, as I mentioned, I was clearing house. I'm getting rid of a bunch of arcade games. Like I got to the point where I had one large room in the basement where I have a popcorn machine, a couple of arcade machines, 5 pinball machines. And then I have another room that's got, another wall length of arcade machines, another wall length of pinball machines, and a driver. And then I had my garage completely. It's a 3-car garage, and I can only put 1 car in it. And then I had 2 storage sheds. So It unfortunately fell victim to the cleaning house phase, and I was okay with selling it until the moment that he actually came and picked it up, and I'm like, oh man, why? You wouldn't believe how many people over the years asked to buy that. On the internet, they'd see it was in my collection on like pinball databases where you put in your collections and things like that. I would just get emails out of the blue. I would guess at least 2 or 3 times a month, just saying, "Hey, you want to sell it?" And I was like, "No, it's my only EM." And I went through a lot to get it working, but the day finally came when it got caught up in that, and I sold it. I would own it again, but I don't think I'll ever see one in that good of condition. It looked really nice.
Yeah, and of course you knew everything that had been done to it, so...
Yep. It had a lot of love put into it, I'll tell you that.
It adds a ton of sentimental value to it.
Yeah.
It's hard to let them go. In fact, I'm incredibly terrible at that.
Yeah, I've gotten worse at it. When I first started collecting, I could go through machines come in and out every week, every other week. Now I've slowed down. I maybe move 1 or 2 machines a year. So.
Yeah, I just moved my first pair out ever this past weekend, and getting ready for some more bingos to come in. So
it's so fun. New Arrival Day is the greatest, though.
Yeah,
it's so awesome. I'll tell you though, like, even if I don't have space for it, my short list EMs, I'll jump on them because I'll make space eventually. But it's tough when you live here. I think what I'll do next year when I go out to Denver is I think I might drive, because I normally fly. It's cheaper to fly than drive. But I've gone out one year with a U-Haul, and I came back with like 5 games. And I think I want to do that again next year, but focus on EMs or early solid states and get some stuff back here that is just not very common. So even if I don't hang on to it very long, at least it'll be here and in the area. But there was a Mata Hari for sale when I was out there, and it killed me that I didn't have a way to get it back.
The EM version is relatively rare of that one too.
Yeah, the only ones I ever see are the ones at California Extreme. There's one that usually shows up there, and then one that it's not every year at the Denver show, but it's there once in a while.
Hanging around in the outskirts.
Yep.
Yeah. So did they have any of the EMs in the tournament at Rocky Mountain?
Yes, actually, and I didn't play in the EM's Classics part of the tournament. I was too busy, so I just kind of focused in on the modern. But I think they listed their. I think I can look that up real quick and tell you what was in it. Okay, so in the EM they had Outer Space, Jumping Jack, and Quick Draw.
Okay.
I like Quick Draw quite a bit, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a fun game.
I
like Jumping Jack.
It's got a right side that's similar to Centigrade 37.
Yes, which is also one of my shortlist games. That's on everybody's shortlist, though, right? Like, nobody passes up a good deal on a Centigrade.
Pretty much, yeah. Have you ever played a Williams Heat Wave?
I have not played Heat Wave. Is that their Data East version of it, kind of?
It was actually earlier.
Okay.
And, that's a gorgeous game, but you're trying to raise the temperature.
Like Centigrade? Yeah, one of the Denver collectors has a just mint condition Centigrade, and I can't believe he brings it, but it's really cool, and he put the Invisiglass on it even, so you walk up to it, it just is amazing. It was not there this year.
Well, it sounds like maybe everyone's saving their energy for next year. So
I guess the overall machine count was up, but the EMs and some of the classic solid state were just not quite there.
So do you attend any other shows? Are there any in the Salt Lake area or anywhere?
We don't have any here right now. I lost my mind and almost thought about trying to put something together myself, but then I learned how difficult it is, and I chickened out pretty hard. So I do go to Denver every year. I hit California Extreme. There's some events and stuff that go on in Vegas, so I'll drive down to those. Mostly those are like tournaments at the Pinball Hall of Fame, or I've gone to a couple that have been put on by Vegas Pinball, which is the Flipperspiel Wonderland. So, I mean, that's kind of mostly what I've been able to do. I think next year will be a bit better year for me. I'm hoping to get to Texas Pinball Festival, and I want to get out to Pinagogo because, as I said, like last year or two, I've really been kind of getting into the EMs a bit more, and Pinagogo's really known for having a ton of those.
Cool. So, Jeff, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on pinball repair and maintenance? Do you enjoy it?
I do. Early on when I was in the hobby, it was actually the repair and the maintenance part that really excited me. My first machine I got in trade for advertising, and it was kind of presented to me as being in much better condition than it actually was. It was a Jurassic Park. And when I got it, it had issues with the trough switches, the T-Rex didn't work, a lot of other things. And I just jumped in and learned and checked RGP and figured out how to fix it. And I was surprised at how fun that was. And that was the part that kind of addicted me even before the gameplay. I mean, I love playing pinball, I always have. But I got hooked on repair pretty quickly.
And how did you feel when you tackled that OXO? Just from a repair standpoint.
There were moments when I wanted to dump lighter fluid on it and just drop a match. Like, I won't lie about that. But as it kind of came more alive little by little, it was so encouraging because it was my first EM. I knew I was working on a hard one and I was still making progress. But when it all came together, I pretty much convinced myself I was the greatest pinball tech to ever walk the earth. Like I did it. This is awesome. And that's why it was so hard for me to sell it.
So, I've briefly off air sent you something about this in the past, but now that you're on my show, I get the chance to ask you in person. How do you feel about the solid state machines and what may happen as chips become no longer available commercially, and the future of repair in the solid state world?
It's something that I actually do worry about quite a bit. I know there's some aftermarket people creating that stuff, but more and more you're starting to see some of the products that even go into those aftermarket products hit end of life status. And you'll see someone post, hey, you're going to want to stock up on these from Mouser. They're not going to carry them anymore, and they even need to special order them. So I do worry about that. I kind of think that if enough machines fall into enough of a bad state, that the demand will create more new repro industries. But yeah, I do worry about that because they're just not as easy to preserve as a new machine or a really old machine, and they're kind of in that weird middle ground. And I hope that someone finds some sort of magical way to keep those going because they could slowly die off one by one on us.
Someone will start a podcast devoted to early solid states one day.
Yeah, that would be great too. There's so many good games, and I think a lot of people who get like super oversaturated with the modern stuff, they go back and they find that just that pure shooting feeling, it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. And there's kind of an emotional response, if you go further back, tied to the bells and the chimes.
Right.
So
some of the early solid state sounds maybe don't have such a positive emotional response.
Warp, warp, warp. Yeah. Who doesn't love that? But on the EM side, one of the great things that I think about it is that as long as you have the appropriate tools and the mechanical know-how, you can pretty much keep them running forever.
Yeah.
There are a few, unique type parts, but there are a lot fewer than on a solid state machine.
And even at that, they're something that if you could get access to like a machine shop or something, you could create the part yourself. If you handed it to someone that worked there and say, "Hey, I need this in not broken form," they could figure it out.
Yeah. So that's something that's always appealed to me as well. And dealing, I work with computers all day. So coming home and working on a pinball computer is much less attractive to me than working on a mechanical beast. Getting it going,
Yeah.
I did this with my own hands. So just kind of exciting from that perspective. But so on the repair side, do you work from schematics or do you work from gut feeling?
Little bit of both. It was one of those things I had to learn how to work schematics as I did more and more board work, and I've been pretty lucky that none of my projects have been too hard to figure out. But no, I can work off schematics. But generally, I kind of can just feel what's wrong with the game, and about 99% of the time I'm right when I fix it, and that's probably more dumb luck than being good at what I do.
Better to be right than wrong. So,
yeah, I guess I've been wrong though.
Well, I think everybody has. It's hard to be 100% right, but it is fun. I mean, I just enjoy it so much, and I hope that other people kind of catch that feeling too, because it's well worth the time and effort invested in an EM machine, getting it going, I think. How do you feel about that? I mean, do you regret the time that you spent with OXO?
Oh, not at all. Like I said, in the moment, I had some serious frustrating ones. Like, I swear this has to be right. It has to be. I mean, everything looks so good, and you lift it up and tweak little things here and there, but you don't really feel like you're doing much. And then when it clicks, like, you learn to love the time you spent on it. And I think it's one of those. It's like such a strong accomplishment feeling that the time invested, the more that went in, it feels even more valuable after the fact. It's one of those like rearview mirror things that you really smile at it afterwards. So I'm sure it would have been much easier for someone with better experience, but yeah.
Well, it always would be.
It's not what I would say a starter game if it's your first EM, but that's the beauty of EMs, right? Like if you just take it one switch at a time, you'll get through it. You'll do it. But there's a lot of switches on OXO. So.
Yep. As you get further and further in, the more and more there are. But usually the easier they are to fix too. If you go too far back, like in the 40s and 30s, you may end up having to fabricate some parts, which is kind of daunting.
Yeah, definitely. Luckily, like I said, it was stored in a shed, and Utah has extremely dry air. Summer, winter, it's not going to corrode or anything like that. It was just climbed all over by, I think I said rats, but I believe it was actually mice, and I think even a cat was living in there at some time. It just, everything was filthy. It had to be taken apart and just done over. But everything mechanically, or all of the stacks were in good shape, just filthy. So, and misaligned.
Yeah, I worked on a game recently that it looks like there were 15 cats that were fighting inside of this machine. And I'm like deathly allergic to cats, so that was a fun one.
I have asthma, and yeah, it definitely irritated me working around the cat hair and stuff. When are we going to bring mods to EMs? Just kidding.
They're there. Actually, it's funny you should mention that. There's a guy in the UK who has modded one of his bingos and added a new feature.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a seriously smart guy. I believe he added the futurity feature, which I don't know if you've memorized all of my previous podcasts, but I talk about that briefly. It's a way to store up the red letter or OK game so that you can get a higher payout later on. Yeah. So he added that feature to this game, which totally did not have it before. Wow. And it took an amazing amount of work and backlash modification and so forth. So pretty.
That sounds insane to me.
Astounding.
Yeah.
But again, that's the beauty of the EM, right? You can modify the circuits as long as you understand them. On the solid state, you're more limited in that regard. And by mods, I know you were being facetious and talking about, like figures that you glue on the playfield, but
yeah. Undercab lights on the EMs.
Well, you could do that too.
You could.
It's all,
you just don't see it.
Driven through that 6 volt. But, as long as it's incandescent, I have no problem with it.
Okay.
Incandescent undercab light.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Some big floodlights. I think you got to do it.
Why is it so bright in here?
My feet's so hot.
My feet are sweaty.
Can I take off my shoes? Is that cool?
Oh, man. Someone's been enjoying your game when you have the footprints in front of them. All that foot sweat.
Yeah, get some of the pin mats for sure.
Yeah. They make those for EMs, right?
Yeah, I think so. They'll fit in front of any pinball machine.
I guess you're right. They don't discriminate. Well, I think that just about covers it, Jeff.
Okay.
Is there any particular date you need me to hop out there and pick up that Key West with you?
Whenever you want. I'll contact the guy. Interested to see if that, like I said, it's been listed for a little while, so see how motivated it is to move it. But maybe, like I said, at $400, maybe that's not too bad of a price on it. So maybe I'll drop by after work, see how well it works when you're standing in front of it. So.
Well, I mean, it can't be but so bad. It has been gone through. So, well, thank you very much, Jeff. And everyone who listens to my podcast, I'm sure, has already heard the Pinball Podcast. But if not, it's with Don and Jeff, and they've both been on here and haven't talked badly about each other, which is nice.
That's a miracle.
Yeah, it's a change of pace from your show.
Yeah,
but,
which is a good thing.
It is. So thank you very much. And
no, thank you. It's fun.
Can't wait till the next Pinball Podcast episode.
Maybe I'll be talking about, well, we're recording Sunday, so I won't be talking about it then, but maybe the next one I'll be talking about my first bingo, right?
That's right. And there's days until Sunday. It's only Thursday right now.
Yeah, that's true. I've got time.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
I'll work on it.
All right, Jeff.
All right.
Thanks very much, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
I want to thank my guest, Jeff Rivera. You can listen to him and Don on the Pinball Podcast, which is located at thepinballpodcast.com. They record bi-weekly, and it's always an entertaining show. And thank you again for listening. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at nbaldridge. And you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.